Hello everybody, hopefully today we're going to embark on a crazy journey where we're going to be making The Legend of Zelda ourselves. In this series I'm going to be showing you pretty much the guideline, I'm pointing you in the right direction on how to make a Zelda game. If you've never made any games before, this is just going to be kind of like a series to just put you on the right path. This is going to show you how to make a player movement system, inventory system, how to 3D model, how to texture, how to create an environment, how to create boss battles, how to create, special weapons and enemies, and then puzzles. It's just going to give you the whole works. UI, it's going to show you completely and utterly how to make a game, or just like I said. So I will point you in the right direction, where to learn how to program if you don't know how to program, where to download the engine that I'm going to be using, all of that. So I think without further ado, we should just hop right into it, ladies and gentlemen. So first things first, we need to install a game engine. The game engine that we're going to be using to make our Legend of Zelda is going to be the Unity game engine. So go to this link, I'll have it in the description, and install the Unity game engine. Ignore my ugly desktop, but after you install Unity, you will get this app called Unity Hub, and this is where all your projects are going to be stored. Within this, you want to go to all templates, go down to Universal 3D. Alright, you're going to have to install this. All you have to do is click on it and then create your project. Name your project something like, I'm gonna name it Zelda Parody because I'm making a Zelda parody. Select an organization if you would like. You don't have to do that. And then connect to Unity Cloud, and I always just check use version control. Just do it. Just click all these buttons and create project. First things first is we need something to program it. I'm assuming that if you're watching this video and you're genuinely following this as like a tutorial for yourself, you already have an IDE or a code editor that you use with Unity. But just for the absolute beginners, you want to download Visual Studio. I will put this link in the description as well. Visual Studio by Microsoft, okay? And this is just how you're going to be able to program in your video game. Now we got the code editor installed and we have Unity installed. For some reason, nobody in the entire universe actually knows about this code editor except me, but there is code editor on the Unity asset store called Script Inspector 3, and this is pretty much a code editor within Unity, which is freaking amazing. Usually in Unity, whenever you want to create a script, you have to actually open up a separate window to actually be able to program into it. With this tool, we're able to program within Unity, and I'll show you after I install it. So if some of you want to drop a nice $40 on this asset, I'll show you how to drop it into your project. So you would navigate to the asset store, add this to your cart, download it. It would be in your packages. So then you would go back to your Unity project, go to Window, Package Manager, because this is a package that we just installed. Dock the package manager somewhere. I would recommend docking it somewhere. And then go to My Assets, this left side. Search My Assets, then type in Script Inspector or whatever asset that you just downloaded. There we go. I'm gonna drag this out. Then click on it, import it into your project. Then this window will pop up. Just click Import All. And there we go. And now we have the best asset that's ever been created within our Unity project. Finally, we get to do some actual game developing. Okay, we got all the setup done. This is pretty much all you have to set up. The rest of the setup just kind of happens. We got this blank scene and there's just nothing. Alright, we need something. So I think first thing we should do is make a floor. To navigate in the scene window, you use the right click button to look around and then WASD to fly. And if you click shift, you can fly really fast. That's probably very important. And let's say you lose everything in your scene, okay? All you have to do is click on an object in your scene in the hierarchy and click F on it. And it'll bring you back to that object and you'll look directly at it. So first thing you want to do is go up to this plus icon in the top left, and this is how you create pretty much everything in your game. You go down to 3D object, and I'm going to create a cube. And this is going to be our floor. But you might be thinking that's a pretty tiny floor. What we're going to do is use this window right here, okay? To click the scale button. This scale button is going to allow us to obviously scale whatever we want in the scene. We could even scale this camera, which doesn't make much sense. But you could click on the object and actually scale it up to become a floor. Dragging on these different handles scales it on the different axes. And then let's say we want to move it down a little bit, which we do. You click on this tool right here, the move tool. Move that down a bit just so our players could walk on it. And there we go, we got a nice floor. So now we probably want to see what the game looks like. So if you look at the screen, you can see that right here there's like a little game window. All right, if you click on it, this is actually showing you the perspective of the camera. So this is where the camera is looking, and it's showing you like what the game view would look like. So personally, I like to dock this down here most of the time, so I could actually see what the game looks like while I'm working in the scene view. But this aspect ratio is obviously not what your screen is going to be looking at. So you want to change this to a 16:9 aspect ratio. Anyway, click that and you could double click it and be like really finicky, or you could go up to this top right, which is what I do, and just name it, which I'm going to name this ground, so I know that this is the ground. Alright, that's looking nice and great. So let's hit play and see what happens in the game. We're going to be making our player next. This environment's pretty ugly. I can't even look at it honestly, so I think we should change the color of the floor, maybe add a little texture onto it, and then also change the sky. So let's do both of those. So down here in this assets window under the project, we're going to right click and then create material. Then I'm just going to name this ground. It's going to be the material for our ground. And then over on this right side, we're able to change the color. For now, just like choose like a green and like make it kind of dark. That's what I'm going to do. You can do whatever you want. But then I think this ground should have a texture. So you want to click this little nipple right here next to this little square. And then you can scroll down and find some of the Unity default textures. If you scroll all the way down, you can find this checker one, which is the one that I usually use because I don't feel like downloading any textures yet. And then you can drag that onto the ground. Check that out. Nice little texture, but that's kind of huge. I kind of want it to be less huge. So over here, there's a little tiling option. I'm going to set it to 10. And I think that's a nice width for it. Yeah, now let's change the skybox. So click on the materials you just made. I'm just going to copy that one. So Control C, Control V, and then now you have another material. To make a skybox within Unity, you have to select this material, go up to the top right where it says shader, click on this, the universal render pipeline / lit, go down till you get to skybox, and then I choose 6-sided. You could create a procedural skybox. This skybox down here, you could drag it into your scene. You can see this little arrow. That means that you're about to drop it onto the sky. But it looks like nothing changed because we haven't changed any of the settings over here. But with this procedural skybox, you could actually create like a horizon, as you can see. You could change the ground tint, make it kind of like nice and moody. Look at that, that's kind of cool. And then you could change the sun size. Where's the sun? There's the sun. Holy crap. You change the sun size, convergence, I don't know what that means, and atmosphere thickness. But to me, this is just like too complicated. I can never get it to look right, so I'm not going to use the procedural skybox. I'm going to go back to the shader skybox and just do a 6-sided blank color. So click tint color and just switch it to whatever color you want if you're choosing to do what I'm doing. I'm going to go with like a blue, normal blue. Sick. I like that. I'm going to move the camera. Nice little trick for moving the camera. If you want your end-game camera to match where your camera is in the scene, you could click Control-Shift-F and the game camera will face your scene camera. Pretty cool. Alrighty then. Now that we got the camera pointing at the ground, it is time to do the best thing ever. Alright, now we've made a lot of changes, so make sure that you save, because Unity does not have like an autosave feature. You will learn that the hard way. But I think it's time to start on our player, the best part. So to start on our player, you want to go back to that plus icon, go down to 3D object, and I think our player for now should be a capsule. Check it out. You can choose any shape that you want. I choose capsule because, I don't know, I think that's the most human shape that they have. But this is just going to be a placeholder for our player. We're going to have like a nice fancy model later. But drag him into your scene and just place him anywhere. What I like to do, so it's like very precise, is I go up to this transform on the right in your inspector, and I just set it to 0 on every axis. Now we know that he's in the center of the scene. Perfect. I also want to rename this to player, and then we're going to create our first script. So click add component. We're going to create a script, and make sure you name it exactly as I name it, because scripts are very particular on how you capitalize things and space things and name things. So make sure whenever you create the script that you're copying everything exactly as I write it down, if you're choosing to copy. If you already know how to program, you already know this, but let's name the script. I'm going to name it player movement because we're going to be making the player movement. So once it's done loading, double click the script, and if you're using an IDE, it's going to open up Visual Studio, but for me, I have this fancy code editor within Unity that makes my life so much easier. So we want to move the player, right? Obviously, we want to move the player. Within Unity, there's tons of ways to move the player. I'm not going to go into all the ways that you can move the player. We're just going to use Unity's built-in character controller. Sounds very nice, right? That they have a controller built into Unity, but it's not what you think. It's not like you drop a character controller and you can move around. You have to actually program it, as you'll see. So I would go back into the inspector within Unity and add another component, and this is going to be, type in the character controller. This is Unity's character controller. All this gives you is the ability to have a jump, and it makes your player able to walk up slopes nicely, because that's actually hard to do. We're going to use this character controller. So within the player movement script, now this is what is so awesome about living in 2024. We have this amazing tool called ChatGPT, and ask it to make me a player movement script. So this is what I would ask ChatGPT. Can you make me a player movement script for Unity? It's a 3D game and use a character controller. It's very important to specify these things because there's different ways to move in Unity, and you want to use the character controller, and also Unity will usually think that you're talking about a 2D game, which we're not. We're making a 3D Zelda game. So just submit that and see what Unity pops out. So it popped out this script. I'm going to leave all these scripts in the description, but at first glance, looks pretty good. It adds a jump already, which I didn't even ask it to do, and it can move left and right. Perfect. So you're going to copy the code, minimize that, click in your IDE, Control A to select everything, and then Control V to paste the whole script in there. Now you want to save the script, let it compile, and then go back into Unity. So now, if we click play, let's make this game window slightly bigger so we can see. If we click play, if everything is correct, we should be able to move. Oh, looks like we cannot move. I actually know why. So if you look over on the right side, our player movement script actually has a ton of variables, and it wants all of them. As you can see, it's looking for a character controller. Luckily, we have a character controller on the player. So if you click this and drag it in there, that will assign that one. Now we need a ground check, and it's looking for a transform. Now this is where, if you're asking ChatGPT to help you program a game and you don't already know about Unity's like quirks, this is gonna stump you. But luckily, I know about the Unity game engine, and I know exactly what it's asking for. But let's say you didn't. What you would want to do is go back to ChatGPT and just ask it like, what is a transform, okay? But it actually shows me down here, like, make sure to add a character controller, assign a transform object to the ground check, and set the ground check mask. I mean, that doesn't go into very much detail, but you could just ask ChatGPT exactly what you need to get what you want, like if it's not working. But anyway, so now we need this thing called a ground check. Well, in video games, the only way that it can tell if your player's on the ground is if you have a point near the player's feet that can collide with the ground. And that's what this is asking for. So all you're going to do is go into your player, right click them, create an empty object, call this the ground check, and then drag it down to his feet. If you hold control and drag, you could actually snap it using the grid. So I'm going to do that. And you can see it's perfectly on -1y. So now I'm going to drag this ground check into the ground check transform, and that problem is solved. As you can see, a little gizmo, that's what these are called, popped up showing like the radius that's gonna tell the engine if you're on the ground or not. So if that sphere is within the ground, then that's gonna pretty much tell the game that, hey, we're on the ground. Now for the ground mask. This is pretty much how the game knows if you're on the ground or not. Okay. Let's say this is a building. How would the game know that this is a building and this is the ground? Okay, because you don't want to be able to jump off the side of this building right here. Well, that's where this comes into play, the ground mask. This is a mask that assigns everything to like a ground layer, so you can tell the game, hey, this is the ground, this is a wall, etc. So what we need to do is assign this ground object to the ground layer. So click on your ground or anything that you want to be the ground and go up to the top right where it says layer, and then you're going to click add layer. Now within this panel, select an empty area and just name it ground. This is us naming what our ground layer is going to be called. You can name it whatever you want, but just name it ground, okay, please. Now go back to your ground, click on the object that you want to be considered the ground, click on it, go to layer, and then add ground. We're not done yet though. All we did is create the ground. All we did is assign this to the ground layer. Now we have to tell the script which layer is the ground layer, which is obviously this one. Perfect. Now if we click play, we should be able to move, theoretically. Alright, click play. Check it out. We're able to move. We're able to jump. Oh my gosh. Now that was a lot of work. Yeah, not so bad. Now we got a player moving around. That's pretty epic. Okay, we have the player movement done, but there's a problem. We're not making one of the OG Zelda games, okay? We're gonna be making like a Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time. So the camera being in this fixed position is not exactly what I was going for. So let's make the camera. Unity has released a tool called Cinemachine that allows us to use a camera made by awesome, very genius developers. So let's install it and drop it into our project. First things we have to do is go to Window, Package Manager, but we already docked it up here. Open up Package Manager and go to the Unity registry on the left side. Click on that, and we're going to search the Unity registry for Cinemachine. Click on this package right here, Cinemachine, and then click install. This package, like I said, is just a camera system for your Unity game, and this is pretty much a drag and drop as opposed to the character controller. Pretty much just drag this and drop it onto your player and it works beautifully. Okay, now it is imported. Now that it's imported, we need to create a camera. So go to the plus icon, go to Cinemachine. So let's take some reference from Wind Waker for the camera. As you can see, the camera follows Link around. And you're able to like look around Link with the right joystick. So what that's called is a free look camera. So we're gonna go click the plus button, go to Cinemachine, and go to free look camera. Perfecto. Now the Cinemachine camera took over our main camera in the scene. Now you can see this icon right here. That means that we are controlling the main camera now. So first thing we need to do is click on the free look camera. Now we have a few fields that we need to define. The follow and the look at. Luckily for us, both the follow and the look at is the player. So drag in the player from the hierarchy into both of these fields. And now we have a camera that's looking at the player. Let's click play and see what happens. So already we could tell that this is way too close to the player. So we need to adjust some fields to make sure that we have an appropriate distance from the camera. So we have these rings around the camera, and these represent where the camera is going to be following your players. Down here in the orbit section, you could actually adjust the radius at which the camera follows your player. And you could adjust how smooth this little connection spline is between few orbits, which I'm not going to do because we don't need to adjust that. So I'm going to pull up a reference of Wind Waker. I'm going to have this on the separate screen. It looks like the middle orbit has Link kind of like at the bottom middle of the screen. Like I would say that this is the center of the screen and the top of his head is touching the center. So let's try to replicate that. So let's see. Say that the radius, like that, and the height be right there. I think, yeah. So the center of the screen is right there. That's the top of his head. That's right. I feel like right there is good. It's the middle rig. Is there a way to... So this guy, when going uphill, he looks down for a split second. As you can see, this is like the middle rig, then it goes close up like that. So it doesn't quite get underneath Link, it kind of just goes into his butt and then it stops. So we're gonna replicate that. So the lower lit rig, let's see, the lowest rig needs to be like right there, and a little bit out, a little bit lower. So that's the lowest one for sure. And then the middle rig right there, that seems kind of good. Yeah, it just goes up. That's like, this is like the peak. So let's see. I don't think you should be able to look directly down on Link. So let's make the height about that tall and just almost just as wide. Yeah, like this wider. I like that. So now I adjusted the values while in play mode so I could look up and down, adjust the value, then look up and down again. Be careful as to not get out of play mode after adjusting the values because it'll actually just delete all your values. So what you want to do is right click on the component itself, click copy component, get out of play mode, and then paste the properties after the fact. Paste component values. So now we have the values that we want. Perfect. Now we got a nice character controller with a camera that could actually follow our character around. It's pretty sick. But there is an issue, and if you're not developing with me, you can't really tell. But this is me going forward. It's moving towards the camera. What happens if I turn the camera this way and I move to the right? The point I'm trying to make is the movement is not based on where the camera position is, which is incorrect. We need to fix that. So that's an easy fix. We'll just go to the player, right? Go back into our player movement script, and now we got to turn this script into a camera-based movement script where it takes into account the position of the camera. So what I would do is Control A to select all the code, copy it, and let's go back into ChatGPT. Now, what I would ask ChatGPT is, can you make the movement relative to the camera? And then I would paste the code to my script. Then ChatGPT is gonna pump out this amazing script. Looks like it got the camera transform, which is what we wanted. Let's see where it handles the camera. See how it handled it. I don't actually see where it's getting the oh, there it is. So now it's using the camera forward and the camera right to tell my player which direction to move in, which is pretty sick. That would have taken me a few hours to figure out, but I would have to Google how to make camera relative movement because I do not remember. So go back into the script, Control A, Control V, paste that boy in there, save it, let it recompile as you do. Go back into the inspector. Always assume that there's going to be new fields that you have to assign. So we're back in the inspector on the same script, and it looks like we need a camera transform. So let's find the camera and drag it into that slot. Let's click play and see if it works. So if I move forward, there we go. I'm moving forward based on the camera. What if I turn this way? Am I going to move forward when I click W? Yes, let's go. We already got some nice slick camera movement. But it's kind of annoying that we could see our mouse and it's going outside of the window. So I think that we should get ChatGPT to fix that. Let's do that. So let's go into ChatGPT and ask it to hide the mouse. All you gotta do is just ask it to hide the mouse, please. 21st century is amazing. Then it's gonna write the whole script. I knew how to do it, but just showing you, this is a great way to learn. So now you know to hide the mouse, you just go into cursor.visible equals false. We're gonna go back in here, Control A, Control V as usual, save, let it recompile, and now when we're in the game we don't have to see our mouse anymore. It's pretty nice. So now we got a basic movement system, we could jump, and we got a camera looking at our player. Now that we're able to look around and walk around, there's a major aspect of Zelda games that we need to implement next with the camera. One of the first things that you do in any Zelda game is learn how to lock onto objects. So that's what we're gonna do next. It's relatively simple. We'll see. Okay, so first things first, let's create an object that we're gonna lock onto. So let's go to the plus icon, 3D object. Let's do another cylinder. Sorry, not a cylinder. 3D object capsule. And we're gonna name this enemy. Perfect. Now I'm gonna put this guy in the center of the stage, anywhere in the map. Now that we have an enemy, we have to make a separate camera that we're gonna use to be like the lock-on camera. So this camera is gonna be in like a fixed position, and it's gonna be able to just look at the enemy, and We're going to transition between the free look camera and the lock on camera whenever we lock on and lock off. So let's go create a new object, Cinemachine. Let's create a virtual camera. And after we create the virtual camera, in the follow slot, we're going to put our player, drag our player in. But in the look at slot, we're going to drag in that enemy that we just created. And just so we don't forget, let's rename this virtual camera to lock on camera. Lock on camera, perfect. So now we're going to set the body to framing transposer. This is just from, I don't really know what framing transposer means. This is just from a ton of testing. I found out that this is the best camera for exactly what we're trying to do. And after doing that, if you click, after setting it to framing transposer, if you go into the frame and you see this blue line, you could actually drag it out. If I do it correctly, I already did this before, I can't seem to do it yet, but if you click in just the right spot, you could drag it out. And this creates a good effect, in my opinion. Dragging this out will create a pretty cool effect where it's always over one of your shoulders, which is how they do it in Wind Waker, which is the game I've been referencing for the most part. So just drag those lines out to be like shoulder width and then let's just click play and see how this looks. Okay. Oh, sorry. Before we click play, make sure that you disable. Okay. Now let's just organize a little bit. What we're gonna do is drag the lock on camera to the top of the scene. So these two Cinemachine objects are both controlling the main camera. These are just like instructions on how this camera should move. So what I would do is actually put these underneath the camera, and that's just a nice little organizational thing that we can do. For now, since we're trying to work on the lock on camera, we should disable the free look camera so we're not getting distracted by it. So this should show us what the lock on camera is. To disable it, you just want to toggle this toggle in the top right. So now you can see that we're locked on. We should be locked on, and you can see that it only starts moving after a little bit. It's hovering over the shoulder, but it's a little bit far away and exaggerated, so let's work on that. So go to the lock on camera, click on that, and I think that it's a little bit too far on the Z axis, which is forward and back. I think this is the wrong value to adjust. Don't adjust this one. Let's find the correct value somewhere. Camera distance. So there's a camera distance variable. So with this, we're gonna bring it up close. I think about that close is good. And this is probably way more accurate to what we're looking for. Yeah. Perfect. I'm into that. So this is what it's gonna look like for our lock on camera. Now that we're not gonna ever get it exactly like perfect. I don't think we're gonna get it exactly perfect, and I honestly don't really think it's worth it to try to make it exactly like Zelda. And I'm gonna make a few modifications to this camera, and I'll let you guys know if I end up changing my mind, but for now this is perfectly fine. So we need to be able to have a way to transition from the free look camera to the lock on camera. So I'm gonna disable the lock on camera, re-enable the free look camera, and I'm actually gonna go to my player, click on the player in the hierarchy, and click add component. So now we need a script to handle managing the cameras, like activating the target camera whenever we have like an enemy to target. So let's do that. So I'm in ChatGPT, and we're going to make a script that while holding a button switches to a different camera, and whenever I release a button it switches back to the original camera. So all I have to do is describe that to ChatGPT. So I'm gonna say, okay, so I just said make me a script for Unity that toggles two objects when I'm holding the right mouse button and then toggles them back when I let go. I could explain it better, but ChatGPT is pretty smart, so I'm just gonna click enter and see what it pumps out. Alright, that works for me. Mouse button 1, which is the right mouse button, which is exactly what I would like. Perfect. So now we're just gonna copy this script, go back into Unity, and first things first, a really important note that I forgot to mention. Whenever you create a script, you have to have it the same name as the script that ChatGPT made, or else you're gonna have some issues and it's not gonna work. So what you need to do initially is copy the class name at the very top, and it's just this string right here, this arrangement of letters right here is going to be what the name of the script is. So then once you copy this, you go into Unity, add component, paste that string of letters, create the script, let it load, and then open it up. Now we have the script open, and we're gonna go back to ChatGPT and copy the script, and then go back into Unity, Control A, Control V, save, and there we go. Let's see if this script is working. So object 1 from the script that I made is going to be the free look camera, which is the default, and then the lock on camera is object 2. And let's see how this works. So looks like we're using the free look camera right now. We're just navigating the world. Okay, so far so good. Now I want to lock onto the enemy with right click. Okay, so it seems that the locking on works, but whenever I let go of the lock on button, it doesn't enable the free look camera again. And I'm actually going to manually modify the script because I think I could fix it. So let's ask ChatGPT to fix it quickly. I want to enable first. I want to end, so this is what I wrote to fix the script. I want to enable the first object when I let go of the mouse and disable the other, and vice versa. This should be enough to get ChatGPT to fix it. Okay, now let's copy this script. You can find the copy button. Go to Unity, Control A, Control V, save, let it recompile, and then click play and let's see what happens. So we're in free cam, lock on, nice, lock off. Now we're back into normal cam. Perfect, it's working. Heck yeah, son. That's what I'm talking about. So let's go to the game. Yeah, let's get a better view. So we're in the normal view. I think I need to work on the camera needs a little bit of work. I think the sensitivity is too high, and also the curve is not smooth enough, but that's fine. So we're moving around the world, and then we see an enemy and we want to lock on. Lock. There we go. We're in the lock on view. You just gotta hold it down. You're locking on and let go, and you're back in the free look. Nice. So that's where we are with this video. You're now able to lock onto your enemy. In the next video, we'll be adding some attacks, some animations, some backflips, some side hops, and maybe a health system. And that's gonna be a big chunk of the portion of the project done. We got a lot done today in this video. We set up the Unity project. We got basic player movement down. We created a camera system and also a lock-on mechanic. So in the next video, whenever we create the combat system, that's going to be a lot in itself. But I'm proud of what we got done today, and I think it's going to be a pretty cool project. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.